My father is from Thiva. He came to Boston area in 1936 between the wars at the invitation of his brother. And
Sotiris.
Sotiris, who was known as George Bassett to the community here in Boston
Yes.
and the non-Greek community. And my mother is a refugee from Smyrna.
She left us
At the age
kid,
of
very
6,
young.
she left with her sister, 2 brothers, and her mother. Her father never made it out, and she arrived in Dorchester, originally through Ellis Island and New York, and then up to Boston in the neighborhood of Dorchester.
And they had a bakery.
Her stepfather had a bakery, and she worked there as well as attended school.
Tell me about the name.
Basiakos is my
Basiakos,
father's name.
That's written with a Greek vita, right? Vasiakos. Or Mipi.
Mipi.
Mipi, Bassett.
And his brother, who came here before World War II, as a matter of fact, became a citizen, served in the U.S. Navy, and he was the executive officer on a naval vessel, a destroyer, during the war. His captain said, you know, you're an officer, you're the second in command, you're the XO, and you should have a name that everyone can pronounce. We're going to call you Bassett. So when my father came over years later, he wanted to be known as the brother, and
it stuck.
adopted at
The Bassett.
the Bassett
The Bassett.
surname. Right.
How many siblings do you have?
One brother who's a year and a half older, Stefan,
Seven.
also grew up in the St. Demetrius community.
And Angelo, your father.
Yeah.
How did he get the idea and why to start a new church? I know he was one of the two originators.
I have a recollection at the age of 10, we would go off on a Saturday morning looking at houses, contemplating a move. One Saturday, he said, let's go, and we drove to Newton Lower Falls from our home in Waban, Massachusetts, which is a village of Newton, and we pulled into the parking lot of what became the first St. Demetrius Church. And we kidded our father, and we said, are we moving to a church? He said, no, but how would you like to go to church here instead of driving into town
To the cathedral.
to the cathedral, which
Yes.
was a tedious
Yeah.
drive. There was no Mass Pike, there was no anything, and no air conditioning in the cars. We're all spoiled today.
Yeah.
And we were all delighted at the prospect.
And that was a small Methodist church.
Yes, and he got home after we toured the building. The broker met us there. We
Oh, I
toured the
see.
building.
Yes, yes.
And he called Dr. Dimitri Decaneas, who was a dear family friend. And I grew up with his 3 boys. The middle child was my age, Tony. And he said, you know, I saw an ad in the newspaper today, and Dr. Decaneas said, stop right there. I went and saw it already.
What a great
So the two minds
yes.
were thinking alike.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember Chris Anton was part of that group of original founders. And obviously you know many more that
Yes.
that got involved. And they got together and they did 2 things. They raised the money to buy the church, and they got the archdiocese through Archbishop Yakovos to agree to sanctify
Approve,
the
yes.
church, right? And that was the beginning of St. Demetrius. That was fun, but what I think you've heard from many, and I'm not the first. The most meaningful thing for me as a then 11-year-old child was working with my hands to clean up an old Methodist church.
Yes.
And make it functioning as a Greek Orthodox church. And that meant coffee hour.
Yes.
And the kitchen was non-functioning.
Not in good shape.
And it was very dirty. And we cleaned it. The kids were given that assignment. And we had all new appliances donated by Lee Loomis.
Lee Loomis. I'm
That's right.
fully aware of him.
Oh,
Yes.
and
Next door.
Papa
He was-
Lee. We
Yes,
would call
Papa
him.
Lee, yes.
And he was a great second dad to many of
Oh.
us. And he donated the appliances, and a coffee hour began. And Greek school began on the stage of the basement, which was
Yes.
also a theater, if you will.
Yes, yes.
And that energy that we felt as young volunteers is something that I remember to this day. You know, certain memories are just, indelible, and that's one of them. And I think that it's true for all Orthodox Christians, and why everyone has made the new Saint Demetrius what it is today.
What do you remember about the picnics, the other social occasions? I hear a lot
Well,
about
we had
picnics.
picnics. We had picnics in the parking lot, and and also beyond the parking, there was a rectory,
Yes,
which were used for Sunday school classes
yes,
as well as for
right.
its dedicated purpose. There was a lawn, and then there was riverfront property.
Yes,
So we had a part where the parking lot was never big enough to accommodate the Sunday parishioners. As a matter of fact, we as young licensed drivers, and sometimes in some cases non-licensed drivers, had to jockey the cars around in case someone wanted to leave. There was no way we could park and allow folks to be able to
of course.
manage their own cars and leave. They were stacked up in the back there. And for the picnics, we used all of it, and they were parked in the street.
Yeah.
It was remarkable.
And what about the priest? You remember Bluguras, I take it? The first
Very,
one?
very well, very,
Yes.
very as a matter of fact, we just had, as you know, we hosted the 44th Biennial Clergy Lady
Correct.
Congress here in
Yes.
Boston, and he
He came.
attended.
Oh,
I actually called him to see if he was coming, and he said he wouldn't miss it. And we got a chance to have lunch together. It was
Oh.
very hectic because I was one of the co-chairs, so
Oh.
we really had, and our whole committee was all largely from St. Demetrius. Uh, no sleep, that
Well,
was thrust upon us with no time
yes,
to execute it. We did a remarkable job.
yes.
And so we took some time out. It was a great moment for me personally. I visited him in Florida several times, had lunch together whenever we
Oh,
could,
he's a very sweet man.
and very learned, and
Oh,
he
yes.
continues.
Of the then we had another major station in the life of the church was, of course, Gallus and Manicus.
Yes,
Manicus, of course, was a
a
legend.
long tenure, a great success,
Great
many
success.
accomplishments.
A very nice
Very,
guy.
and
Yeah.
it still
He
celebrates
comes,
liturgy with
yeah,
us
he
every
comes,
Sunday,
yes.
and it's
So,
wonderful.
so Peter, what advice do you have for the new families that are coming in? First of all, what made uh, St. Demetrius such a success?
Well, I think that I think the way we began was actually part of the whole spirit. If you look at any of the church, and we're all Orthodoxy is churches that were purchased, and then subsequently new churches were built, land was acquired. Sometimes I've heard stories when we were researching building our new building, we had to learn how different parishes built their new churches, so that we would learn by their mistakes and learn by their successes. And in every case, that spirit of volunteerism is the driving force. Obviously, all recognizing that it's for the glory of God. We're not doing it to say we have the most beautiful church or the best church. We're doing it, and I think everyone agrees, we're doing it because we want to represent ourselves before God in His glory.
Yes.
So, and if you can do it with and I think we were among the first churches to have stewardship. And so if you can do it with your hands, if you have a skill, if you're a roofer, or you know about cable TV,
Yes.
or audio visual, or you can donate a refrigerator or whatever, that's what it takes to be a steward of the church. If a lawyer, many times they've donated their legal services for the
Yes.
many contracts under construction, for example. And then there are others that also are generous with their wallets. So that
That's what it
comes from
takes.
the spirit of entrepreneurial,
Yes.
it's like I call it a pioneering spirit. We came here Our parents, our grandparents came here. They were pioneers, and it was
Absolutely.
contagious.
Yeah.
They imbued it in all of us, and it lives today.